Okay, that's right. When it goes in presentation mode, it switches screen. So yeah, so hello everyone. I'm Geoffrey, and I will be talking about Spring Native. That is to create a native image from Spring Boot projects. Short about me first. So my name is Geoffrey. I'm a senior consultant at JPro. Hope you guys check the Twitter page from that was in the invite and the website. They will be very happy in marketing to have some traffic there. Anyways, if you want to contact me, in any case, Twitter is the best way. I guess that's what you already said. So yeah. Anyway, yeah, my life has been basically in Java JVM coding. Lately, has been more and more Kotlin, and also a lot of interest in infrastructure virtualization. Lots of experience also in VMware, vSphere, Kubernetes, setup of CI/CD, things like that. But yeah, we talk basically of Spring and JVM today. So quick agenda. I'll start with some background definition and goals for kind of talking about the same thing when I use some words. So nice to know. And there was actually a comment on the chat here about what's the need of native code. I'll try to answer that. Then I will go for a live demonstration of the different things and some points, conclusion, gotchas after, actually during some the demonstration as well. Yeah, let's start with.
We'll interrupt with question during. Don't worry. We don't save it for the last.
Yeah, no, it's just at the end if you don't have a Q&A. But yeah, I just wanted to say later. But building time will take time, so don't be afraid to interrupt and ask question when it's actually building. It takes time, so we need to fill some blanks sometimes. So don't be afraid to shoot. Yes, so. Background, we want Spring Boot backend running on a Kubernetes cluster. Kind of don't know about you guys, but it's a lot of what I'm doing day to day, and also lots of my colleagues in my consulting company at JPro. Basically, it's Kubernetes it's the hype, and it's really nice to handle deployment on new version, canary deployment, things like that. So it's kind of been a standard nowadays in Norway. And, since we're talking about Spring Native, it needs to be a Spring Boot. But you can actually do native coding on anything running on the JVM. But yeah, in here, we're talking about Spring Boot. Definition, when I'm talking about an image, it will be a Docker image, so that we all talk about the same thing when I say image. And native here in this context means low-level bytecode, not JVM, things like that. So discussed a bit earlier, like kind of compiled code running really low level. And yeah, the idea is like if you've been working on a Java application running in containers. Lots of them actually need, kind of extra memory and CPU just to actually boot. All this class loader takes time and memory, and basically it actually loads also lots of classes that we don't really need. So in my experience, we actually in our Kubernetes installations assign more resources to the different pods just to have the application started in a reasonable amount of time. And that's not always good. Kind of, if you have a cluster with X number of nodes, that you might need to increase the memory capacity on the cluster just because you have a lot of Java applications starting and actually not using it after. It's not optimal. So basically what we really want to do here with the native plugin is minimize the memory and CPU consumption at all time, but mainly at starting time. That it's, I think, one of the main issues in the JVM. And ideally also have smaller image size. Also, kind of, if you have your image repository somewhere that needs to download plenty of time, if you're hosting it in Amazon, for example, you would pay for transferring from a zone to another one. So small image is a nice thing to have. So
when you said there a native low-level machine code, bytecode, you actually mean machine code, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So it's
because on your slide you wrote bytecode. Just maybe it's a typo.
Yeah. It's yeah. I actually will need to check on that if it's actually bytecode or machine code, because it's compiled as if you were compiling, kind of a C application or something like that. You can't decompile it in any way that is doable. Yeah, so for the demo, I will just have a simple Spring Boot application, start in, run a jar, and get some initial value to compare to with the other image and native image. So we'll start with a jar, or just running the application, from the main class, and then build the kind of normal image like out of the box you get in Spring Boot. And then we'll go to a native image to actually see the difference, and hopefully it will be a lot faster. So let me drop this here, and we'll go to, if I share this here now, kind of the best place on earth. Kind of open question, what's the best place on earth? Anyone? It's production, right? You always want to be in production. And yeah, it's nice to be on your laptop coding, but the best place is always in production. And after that, if you kind of bored an evening, the next best place is starspring.io. So don't have a lot of preferences, but I heard a lot of people think Gradle is better. So you can see my browser, right?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. And since we like new and fancy, we'll go Kotlin. Then we'll give it a name. Spring native demo. Yeah, let's say EL. Jar 11. And then we have the dependency. That's actually, you get the Spring Native configuration already out of the box here. Note that it's actually still in experimental project, so not everything will work. We'll get to that after. But let's start with the Spring Native. We always take the actuator. It's nice to get some measurements, and web, so we have actually something to run on. And I'll take this one for later. Gotchas. Do we need anything else? I think we are good to go. So now we get the nice one here, and obviously I have two screens, so it always open on the other one. So yeah, now we have our project, and I say we'll start with a simple jar. So let me just comment out those that we won't be using right now. And yeah, just put 001. So we have that covered. Yeah, so IntelliJ is still indexing and building model and everything. So I guess I won't be able to create the package yet. And here we go. Since I'm always cleaning things nicely, I always put them in different classes. So we say we'll go to Kotlin, and obviously, hello, Java. Right. And we just have a simple REST controller. Gquest mapping. Let's call it just hello. Say hello. Really simple for now, just hello Java.IL. Right, that actually should do it. Let's just take to have the measurement in the actuator. Let's open all endpoints and web exposure include, and we'll get all of them. Right, so it's called that one. Then Gradle projects, Gradle and boot jar. So for those who doesn't know that yet, that will create a runnable jar from this little project. And we'll see the size of it. Obviously, it will be much smaller than anything else. And yeah, let's put an H to that. So it's 23 megabytes. So it's actually, you know, Spring is quite a lot of things. So we basically have no code at all, probably like 50 bytes of code, and it's actually already 23 megabytes. So it's actually quite a lot. But let's see how that goes if we're starting it. And we have a boot time of 2.4 seconds. That's actually not bad, but as you know, if it was a bigger application, it would take more time. So let's just verify that everything is working as expected. And yes, hello, Java.IL. And let's just see. I don't know if you've seen the actuator before in Spring. So not all of them are open by default. That's why we needed to add the application properties. You basically have only info and health that are open by default on the web. And there's a nice one here called metrics. We can just go in there and you actually see the different things we can look at. So let's have a look, for example, at that one. That's kind of a nice one to have. So yeah, it's 88 megabytes just starting. It's basically not running anything. If we kind of refresh this page, it probably will update to 92 right now. So kind of a lot of memory already for just a jar file running and actually not doing a lot. All right. So let's go back and stop that one. Now we build this as the jar file. Now to build it as an image, it's also part of the Spring Boot plugin. And this you can get without native already. So this will build the image non-natively. Boot build image. Am I not at the correct place? Yes, I am. Unable to parse. Oh, I didn't like the naming. Okay. Let's go back to that one. Where is actually the name here? It's probably in there. I don't think it likes to have. It doesn't like to have capital letters in the name. So let's go back. Yeah, I didn't actually know that. So now it's building. So we'll see earlier, it actually took like, where was it? It took like some seconds, like 10 seconds to actually build the thing. So it's actually quite fast. Now it's building the image, and the way it does, it's actually, it uses build packs to build the image. And yeah, there's a lot of configuration going on. Now it's actually adding different layer for, you know, kind of certificate helper. And here it's actually still okay building time in 47 seconds. And now we have a Docker image that we can run. So it's kind of the magic of Spring Boot here. So let's just run that one. And you know, it's already taking more than 3 seconds to start. So it's not, again, a big difference in seconds, but it's from 2.4 to 3.2. So it's kind of a 33% increase. So, you know, kind of, if the application is bigger, it's kind of exponentially going crazy. So it's still answer as expected here, and there you can check, and it already takes 142 megabytes. And we still haven't done anything with it. So kind of, again, refreshing it here would increase this to 148. So kind of using it as a Docker image, kind of also bloat the whole thing up. Also, the image in itself is actually quite big. If yeah. Oops. That would be it's actually 267 megabytes from our 23 we had earlier. So it's actually quite a big image. So it might take time over the wire to download to your Kubernetes cluster. So now let's go and see how the native part is going. So let me take those back and that as well. And I'll just start the building here, and we'll take a little bit more time. So when it's actually doing its work, you can see that it's actually doing a task called generate AOT and compile AOT. That's a plugin here that is part of it's part of this plugin. It's actually trying to find out everything that you will need and limiting it to that when actually building, compiling, and doing all its work. This is also kind of configuration, and this is for the building part. And it will say that, yeah, use a different builder that's called Tiny. Actually, if you use in the previous one, it's used the builder called I think it's called generic or something like that. So this one will actually say that you should actually try to build a tiny image now. And this is the flag saying we actually want to build a native application within this image. Right. So for those of you that try to build native image or native application with Java, so what this here do is actually using the Graal VM to kind of do the building, compiling, and shrinking of everything. And if you tried, it's basically a command line that you can use that's actually called native image. And that's what it's actually doing up here. So it's called the native image. Kind of what the plugin does is finding out all of this. And you might think that some are not needed, some maybe, or whatever, but basically the native image, you need to tell it everything you will use, and it will throw away everything else. Right? So let's see, it's still building. Any questions?
You have a question? Yes, you have a question. Quite a long one on the chat.
Okay, sorry, didn't see. Yeah, chat too. Okay, I heard not all libraries can be built to native image since some of them have dynamic class loading, which we need to declare to Graal VM for building the image. Maybe I didn't understand. Assuming I have microservices which are all using our internal framework, which is also relying on third party, how can I make a built as native image? Yes, that is a very good question, and basically you're answering the rest of my talk as well. So yeah, let's go to the web since we are having the question already. There's the documentation here about this is the Spring Native documentation. And basically you have the 0.3, that's the important part I want to show you now. It's what's actually supported. Yeah, so it's running this version of Graal VM, different version of Java and Kotlin are supported. Both But what's actually important here is the list in 352. That's actually the Spring Boot starter that are supported now. So there's some, not all of them, far from that, but it's a work in progress. So the list is getting longer for every actually even minor and patch version of the plugin. And also some of the cloud starter that are supported, also different on data. That being said, if you use your own library, you basically need to tell again, there is what's called here native hints. So there are two ways to tell the native image command that it should do things here and there. So there is the 4 files described at the top, basically doing different things. And, you know, kind of if it's something that needs to be from reflect, config, resource, other properties, you need to put it in the correct files. But what also the plugin provides is that you can actually create annotated class to get the information you want to pass to native image. So basically, all the supported packages, they have 1, 2, or 3 of those type hint classes in the plugin to say, okay, for Spring Web, you need to have, I don't know, I don't recall them top of my head, but you need to load embedded Tomcast, yeah, request mapping, request header, things like that, that you might not have out of the box. And obviously in some of them, there are things missing because, you know, kind of, you don't use everything all the time from those packages. So if it's something missing, basically they have the projects on GitHub, and you know, it's kind of still 101 open issues. If you don't know, if you have a question, the guys working there are very, very good at answering. Will not promise you get an answer within the day, but usually 2 or 3 working days, you will get an answer or at least some feedback on your question in any case. So basically, if it's to answer the question, if it doesn't exist, you will need to either have those JSON file or create a type hint. We can actually just look at one of them if it's in the native, and you can actually put yours as well. So yeah, the bad example, it's not those ones. Native, is it in configuration maybe? Yeah, so yeah, for MySQL is MySQL hints. So basically, you know, it's lots of import, and you have the native hints that, yeah, define the trigger. If you have the driver class from MySQL, then you need the type hints. That's basically the class you would need that usually we don't really know about. But in the JVM, they're there, and or in the library, they're always there. And now you're basically saying that you want them from the native builds. And also you might need some resources. I'm not sure what those, yeah, for TLS settings, localize error messages. And basically, you know, it's a class implements native configuration and just annotate it. So depending on which library you are using, it might take you like 10 minutes to figure out to 3 weeks and just giving up. I'll show an example later on. That's why I got the camel dependency. Yeah, let's go back. It's probably finished. So yeah, you get 3 minutes and 31 seconds to build that one. Now it's a new version. Now you can see it's actually only 112 megabytes. So it's around 40% in size already. So that's, you know, it's kind of a nice thing to have. And now we start. Anyone want to venture a guess for the booting time of this image now? Anyone?
10
No.
milliseconds.
Yeah, okay. People are optimistic. It's still a Docker image, right? Running on my laptop, right? But in any case, it took 0.16. So it's a bit better, you might say. Really a bit better. So we can also go there, and it's still answering the way it's supposed to do. And now we have the JVM memory used here in the actuator. Any guess what happens when we refresh that one? What the values would be?
50.
You say 50, do you get 50 here? They actually a trick question. If I refresh that, it doesn't exist. And
no.
Yeah, it's actually a JVM memory use. The JVM is not there anymore. So from earlier, you get the metrics. This was a long list, but you know, it actually doesn't exist anymore. So we can always go in here and check Docker stats. And it's around 64 now. So it was not so bad with the 50, but it just wasn't the JVM. Now, it's not magic. It's still kind of Java thing. So if we refresh it plenty of time, it will actually increase to 65. But it's not increasing as fast, and it's starting a bit lower. So it's actually an improvement, I would say. Kind of back to our goals. It was starting fast and using less memory. I'd say we succeeded there, and a nice to have as a smaller image. So that was the nice case. Okay, now let's just have a little bit of fun, since we are doing some Kotlin. We'll just
I have a small question. Will you explain later about why it's consuming less memory?
It's basically, since you actually not having the JVM itself, it's it doesn't load kind of, I don't recall a default JVM how many classes it loads, but I seem to recall a Spring Boot application is around 60,000 classes that it loads at boot at startup time. And just like now, it will actually run machine code, bytecode. Let's go back to that one. But it will just not actually load in memory things that it's actually not using.
Does it include a JIT?
Well, include a
JIT, just-in-time compiler?
No. It's actually AOT for the whole thing.
So that may be part of the answer there as well, right?
Yeah, it's compiled ahead of time, so it will know what things are using. So it will not, it just doesn't load anything that won't be needed. Yes. Yeah.
Great.
Okay. Now I just want to kind of, Kotlin class, just put a model. So now we'll get the really advanced program that will actually have a data class here. and we'll say hello to someone, and I don't know, get his age. Yes, then let's go and change our controller. It will then take the person and say then to hello person name. You are, yeah, doesn't really matter, but yes. Any ideas? We can actually just running it like that. I just check that it is stop, so we don't use the port twice. So yeah, I'll run it from here directly. Any idea what happens when we try to post like that to in Kotlin? No one ventured a guess. Okay, I'll just do it then. And we get an HTTP 400. That's kind of issues with Kotlin and Jersey Jackson thing. It's just that for those who don't know, this is a val, so it cannot be changed after it's been set. But the deserialization is actually, or serialization is actually expecting to create an object, an empty constructor object, and put the values after. So there are workarounds for that, but it's not kind of the issue here. I wanted to show you. So basically, you see that we get an HTTP 400. Let's just go and build the image again. Also, a little nice to know things here. At least if you're running on Mac, I know it's not a problem on Linux usually, but the build uses Docker to build the Docker image, actually. So you need Docker to build the boot image. And we've seen, don't know if you paid attention, but here somewhere is actually setting how much memory it uses in different steps it goes through. And by default, if you're using a Docker desktop on Mac, you don't get that much memory. So yeah, increase your memory if you're running on Mac. It sets a limits for what Docker can use. If you use it on default, you will never be able to build the image at all. Native image. Usual image will go, but native image, it won't. It will fail probably 50% of the time and take 2 to 3 hours the times that it actually succeeds. So, yeah, good question. Since we actually still building in memory management, the same in native Spring and in JVM, like using garbage collector, etc. It's a very good question. Memory management is not the same exactly, but the concept will be the same. So it's actually will, I don't think it's called the garbage collector, but it will go through something emptying references once in a while. I actually haven't run into the situation myself, because most of the time the pods that were created were with kind of JVM in mind memory. even though it was on the lower side and actually never hit memory limits. So basically, it will also use the available memory before garbage collecting. So, if you have a pod and you assign it 250 megs, it actually takes quite a lot to actually reach it. So I actually haven't run any pods long enough to run into garbage collection. And here we go. Again, same time, then we can run it again. Still 0.17 second to start. So this one, we got a 400 bad request, and now it's still a 400. Okay. I didn't check it. It's actually been an upgrade in the plugin since I checked it like 3-4 days ago. And what I wanted to actually show you is that in some cases, you will get different errors, HTTP errors. So in the previous version of the plugin, it was actually a 500 you would get here. So demo bugs, demo feature. Sorry about that. Then let's move on. We had our camel as well, and we'll just go to the next one. Routes. Oh, come on. Thank you. New class, just simple routes. I just have some code ready already. Now it's just, I don't know if you know about Camel, but basically it's let's call it kind of a state machine transition thingy. So you configure what's called routes from here. And all those routes will, kind of process sequentially. So here, basically, you say from a file that I define here from my an in folder, move them to the out folder. It's kind of really simple application, doesn't really do a lot. Should have. Too late. So let's say I take the out, I put it back in, and it kind of just move the files around. And it's really a simple application that doesn't do very much exciting, but kind of answering the question about what happens if the support doesn't exist. So Camel support is not out yet, and it probably won't be in the near future because Camel is so big. So I guess it won't be a priority for now. So now, since it's building, I see another comment regarding image size. To be fair, the bigger image before native has a share layer of the JDK that is shared among various Docker images, right? Yes. Versus the native that doesn't have share stuff. Yes, that's kind of correct. So yeah, there's two things on the image size. Again, to be fair, is I say the builder is tiny, so kind of the OS layer is also a bit smaller, and it doesn't have the JVM, so it actually helps. So But in the end, the executable is usually around a third of the size. Like I said, rule of thumb. We say the jar file before compared to the executable file you get building native. Kind of takes some time. Any other questions while we await for this?
So when building for test environment and playing around with the system, actually, it seems to be that there is a benefit for the old way of doing it through the JDK, because a lot of the stuff is shared and the build is faster.
Yeah, you will not build native to develop and test locally. It doesn't make sense. You would have to wait like probably at least 5-6 minutes every time you want to try something. But kind of the flow, if you want to okay, my opinion, the flow I used when actually I have actually 2 or 3 applications running like that in productions. It's kind of you develop it and run it locally like you would do, kind of I did earlier, just press play in IntelliJ kind of thing. But when you've done and everything is working, you still need to build and test it locally, because kind of the point coming up in probably 15-20 seconds is that it doesn't always work, even though it did work 5 minutes earlier without building natively. But in any case, no, you wouldn't test and develop natively. It doesn't make any. I don't see any point in doing it.
I mean, if I'm at the stage of the functionality, even if I upload to the cloud a bigger image, it's actually not that I'm uploading a bigger image, because part of it is not changing. The JDK part doesn't change, only the layer on top of it, which is smaller sometimes.
Yeah, and you're totally correct. It use a pulling of image. It will probably 9 out of 10 times just pull the top layer, that is the application. That's probably in any case like 8-10 megabytes. But kind of I don't know. It's coming also on different updates over time, right? So if you build the image, even though it's not natively, you would have some OS layer updates. You would have a new, minor version of the JVM as well. Even if it's running JVM 11, kind of 11.0.12, then 13's comes. So it would need to download it, even though if it's probably just once, it needs to go through this once in a while. That's kind of the idea behind the decision to use build packs as well, to kind of leverage layers as much as possible. But yes, it did build now, and there you have the failure. So kind of back to the question of earlier, the native reflection configuration is missing a resource converter loader, and kind of the issues when the support is not built in. So kind of the way you do it, you would create the native hints class, add that one, then build again, try again, and you would see, okay, that's the next class missing there. And I wrote the Java.IL support for the Spring Native plugin, and it was kind of like that. You start, you build, and you see what fails, because basically you don't really know what will and what won't. And also, to give a bad example, but for Java.IL, you get you running and it's working nicely, and then you try to connect with TLS. Then you forgot to add those TLS classes as well. Okay. Now back to yeah, get some numbers that I run earlier. It's actually yeah, a bit variable, but I run it a lot of times, and it's kind of sorry, it's kind of the you know, timing about the timing of build time, size, startup time. It's around those figures that are coming up with the test I ran them enough time to have some average in here. A little star here again, a bit what we've been discussing kind of on the side. The build time we got here was actually let's call them good enough. Again, the first time you will do that, it will take more time because again, it will need to download all the layers of the build packs and everything. So the first time, don't panic if it takes more time. Yes, so the first one I didn't get to show you, but keep in mind that if you get errors, they might actually change HTTP code. Again, it's something they're working on to actually get correctly over time, but you know, just keep that in mind. Not everything's straightforward, so check the supported packages list. If it's not there, and if it's a big package you have as a library, wait for it. You probably don't want to do it yourself. Again, what do you want to do if something missing? Create the native hints or annotate it with annotated class or JSON property files. And also a notice that debugging is hard, much harder than usual, because you know you can't attach a debugger to the native application. It's not what it's meant to do. Yeah, long time to build. As I told you, if you're running on Mac, you really need to increase the limitations you have on Docker desktop. Also, yeah, side note, you can actually build the native application without building an image if you want to. It will still kind of take the same amount of time to build, but you know, I don't know, if you want to run it as an executable on a server, it might just work. If yeah, for whatever reason you would have it's working just as nice. And yeah, if you need any help, you know, really GitHub issues, that's the way to go. There's not a lot of Stack Overflow question and answer on that yet. It's still really new and, you know, kind of experimental yet. So, you know, it will get there. It just take a bit of time. Yeah, I basically also show you the documentations and GitHub pages. Yeah. A nice also note is that on the next version, also now we are running 0.10.5, the 0.11 that is coming probably next week, hopefully. It would, yeah, they promise a much increase in building time, or decrease in building time, increase in performance at building time. So yeah, that was it from me, and I guess I spent more than my hour. So any more questions? I guess I'll show my face. Anyway, nope.
I see nobody has any questions.
Okay, thanks a lot, everyone.
Thanks a lot, Geoffrey. That's really
Thank
really
you.
good and refreshing to see the integration between GraalVM and Spring. and how it helps everybody that uses and wants to build binary images. So thanks a lot, and good luck and success on your lecture in Java Zone.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
I hope it was a good dry run.
Yeah.
As promised.
Yes, it's nice to actually, it's nice to get the update. So I need to update my presentation, and probably need to check again before Java Zone, because again, it's they're working hard on it. They're coming with a patch version, I think every 2 weeks nowadays. So, you know, if it's something that you think you might need, it's actually not that hard to get at least your library working. If
How
it's
stable is it in production?
I have 3 applications running in production, and I haven't had any issues at all. Again, I haven't been running the same version long enough to kind of go through out of memory possibilities. I don't know, but it's actually quite heavy. It should be heavy on memory. It was very heavy on memory before running in them native. So, but I don't have any issues at all. Haven't seen anything that say, oh no, don't do it. Now, that being said, it's on yeah, kind of 5 version back of the plugin. So might be they did something that is messing it up.
Connection to databases and JDBC drivers are already implemented there in the.
Some of them, I know MySQL is there. H2 I know is working for, actually, if you want to run unit tests or whatever with the native image. That sounds weird, but H2, and they also have a couple of reactive driver also implemented.
Oh, nice.
I believe the MySQL and MariaDB R2DBC are also implemented. Let me see if I can find them. It should be in the supported list somewhere. In any case, I know it's running nice towards MySQL. Okay, MySQL, PostgreSQL, H2 are up and running, and Spring Session with towards Redis as well.